Hey everybody, on today's video, I'm going to do something that I haven't done before. Normally, when I record these videos, I show you code that I've already done and I explain how it works and I show an example and all that. Today, I want to show you how I build a simple application, specifically one in Alpine.js. Now, I'm not going to be building it from scratch per se. It's something that I've already built in vanilla JavaScript, and I would never recommend taking something that works and just slapping a framework on just because. But it does give me a completed demo that I could show you and that we can reference. And then I could show you how I would build this with Alpine.js. Not sure how this is going to work. It may work horribly, but you know what? Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. So, with that, let me show you the finished vanilla application first. So, what you have here is a demo that allows you to select a color, and I will go over here and pick something in the green area. I love green. It will render the RGB value for that color, and then it will tell you how far away that color is from red, green, and blue. And you can see it's represented numerically there. And then it tells you what color it is closest. So obviously, I picked the greenish color. It's closest to green. My wife's favorite color is blue. So if we go in here and pick like a real dark blue, let's say, it's going to switch to the closest color being blue. Now, the logic for this came from this blog post by Adam Davis. It's incredibly deep article about how to, as it says, figure out the uh, distance between two colors. It's incredibly in depth. I used a very, very small part of his blog post for my demo. But there you go. And so that's what we're going to build. Now, I'm not going to start completely from scratch. We're in the Alpine.js version. And in fact, let me difference in color. Wow. This is why I don't type normally in videos. All right. So I did copy over the CSS I used and a bit of the HTML so you could see using some basic spans for those blocks over there. And let's go ahead and minimize this. And of course, I'll have links for this version, the vanilla version, and the blog post I reference as well in the description below for you to look at. So let's, oh, and I have a skeleton Alpine.js application loaded. You can see the script tag loading the Alpine library, and I have my, setup right here. So let's get started. The first thing that I want to do is render out the color for, when you actually pick something. So I don't really need an ID anymore. I'm gonna make this an X model. And we are going to default source color RGB to null. And in theory, that should have the default for the HTML. It should be just black. And then if you remember, and I will be going back and forth, kind of copying and pasting as well. I print out the selected color when you pick one. So let's actually, right after this, do span x text equals source color RGB, saw like that. And in theory, it should be nothing so far. And when I pick something, let's see. All right, we can see this is why I don't normally do this live because I mess something up. That's fine. This is exactly what I do normally when I'm building an application. So let's save this and have it reload. Oh, I hate that copin readjust this stuff. All right. So now when I pick a color, it should show up. You know what? Let's default this to red and see what happened. All right, so Oh, alrighty then. Again, this is why I don't do this live. So this will be X model equals source color RGB. I tell you, I'm tempted to just like start over again, but you know what? That's a very typical example of what I would do. So let's make this null again. And like I said, it should default to black. And then I can go in here and pick a color, and there we go. It shows up. Now, if I did want it to actually be black, like the input field control shows, I can actually just go and specify 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, like that. And now we actually see the color it matches, and it's also the correct RGB value as well. Now, my only concern here is that I'd want to check in different browsers to see what it defaults to, but because I'm specifying a color, the value is going to be what I said anyway. But there we go. We have part of it done already. So the next thing that I want to do is start getting the numerical values for how far apart something is in the from your selected color and red, green, and blue. And if we go back and reference it, we can see it says distance and a colon and then the value. So I think what I want to do is I'm going to go back over here and get rid of the ID and say X if red distance only show up if we have a value. And we'll say distance and span X if equal, I'm not X if, X text, close the span, and red distance. So in theory, it'll only show that label when I have a value, and I do need to give that a default distance of null. And now, in theory, it should go away. Oh, and you know what? Not XIF. We'll do XShow. When you do XIF, you need to have a top-level template tag in the inside, and I could do that, but XShow is good enough for my case. So first thing I'm going to do is actually start getting a value for red distance. And you know what? We're going to change this to a function where we will return the value of red distance. So we'll do 1, for example. It's kind of hard-coded. And as it loads up, you see it shows a distance of 1. But we want to make this actually be dynamic based on what you pick. So I'm going to go back to my source code, my first one, and look at how I did it. And I did it by building a color diff based on my input color. Now, I built a utility method called RGB string to color, where I take the value of the input field, and what it does is it takes that 0D1059 and basically just parses out and converts from hex to decimal for those values. So this function works perfectly well. So we're just going to copy and paste that in here. And by the way, I could make this an Alpine method as opposed to a global function, but that's fine. So what we'll do is we'll say let color equals RGB string to color, and then our input is this dot source color RGB. And for the heck of it, let's take a look at color. And in theory, you could see RGB right there, red, green, blue. And if I pick something else, we'll do all the way up here. You see we have the decimal values for the red, green, and blue values. So once I have that, I can then use the logic that, what's his name, Adam Davis set up. And I have his function here, and I have his credit as well, where I can actually give you the distance based on an A and B value. So I'm going to go back in here. We're just going to add this. So now if I want to know the difference, all I have to do is say return, and what did I call it? Color diff. And this function is going to expect an object like I'm making that has a red, green, and blue value. So I will pass color. And then I need a red, which will be red 255, green 0, blue 0. And get rid of that space there. And in theory, we'll clear this. We'll pick a color and see what happens. And source color RGB. Gotta make sure I'm doing it right. Source color RGB. Of course it's defined. I defined it right there. Let's save it, clear, and reload for the heck of it and see what happens. I absolutely will do that from time to time. Red distance is not defined. Well, of course it is. It's defined right there. And, oh, it's because I have a typo. That should do it. So bam, it reloads, and the distance makes sense from black all the way to red would be 255. Now, what I could do, in fact, what I'm going to do right now, is I'm going to say const red equals red 255, green 0, blue 0, like that, and then just do this and pass it in here. So now it looks a little bit cleaner, and in theory, all I got to do is repeat this for all the rest, right? So I'm going to just copy and paste, and we will change this to green distance, green, and once more for blue. Once more for blue, like that. Get rid of these, oops, these two here. And then just basically copy and paste this again, like so. All right, so we have green, and we will make 2 more constants for this, and blue. All right, we are almost there. Oh, blue. So let me go up here and define green and blue. Green would be 0 for red, 255 for green, and blue will be 0 and 255 for blue. All right, so in theory now, we should see the values. And I did something wrong with green. Aha, green. There we go, green. And it should show up. Great. Now, if I pick a color that's like real close to red, we will see. And actually, one difference already is that because of the binding in Alpine, this is all live. So like as I go back and forth, you could see this showing up a lot quicker. So now the last thing we need is the closest color. And I have your color is closest to blue. So what I'm going to do is add a thing at the bottom, span xShow equals closest color. And what did I say? Did I say, yeah, your color is closest to span xShow equals closest, should be as their closest color, span, and then like so, and then add this here. So this is also going to be a function. So we'll go down here at the bottom, closest color. And in theory, black is a valid color, but we probably don't want to show it if it's black because you haven't really picked anything. And it would also be, the equal amount of distance between all of them. So I'm just going to say if this dot source color RGB equals just return nothing. And just to see if this was working, we will hard code it to red, and we should, oh, I haven't picked anything yet. Let me pick something. There we go. Return color. Your color is closest to, let me make sure I spelled it right. Close, C-L-E. Oh, once again, I did xShow, not xText. There we go. So now it should say to color. Great. So what we're going to do now is figure out what is the smallest value. And I believe I just did it with some basic ifs, like so. Yeah. So you know what? This is actually pretty close. So I'm going to copy and paste that logic. And we'll need to switch it a little bit. And basically say if this dot red distance is less than this dot green distance, and if it's also less than the blue distance, all right. Again, remember, these will all be dynamic values. Then we return, let me actually also return closest at the end. And we're almost done. So, by the way, if it wasn't clear there, I just default to blue, and then I only need to check for red and green. So we're almost done. So close. One more variable after this, distance, less than this dot, blue distance. All right, let's see if I did this without typing anything up. Let me add a semicolon there. And clear, save, and pick something and see what happens. And that is absolutely not correct. So let's look at what we have here. This dot blue, this dot red distance, this dot blue distance. So it should be red, right? I think we agree on that. So let's do this. Let's console.log just red and green, just to kind of see this dot green distance. And let you clear, and we will pick red. And yep, I need to actually check the values. So in Alpine, I don't need to put the parens in my HTML, which is really handy. I do need to put it in my code. And we could see real values showing up there. So I'll get rid of this console because I know that that is not the issue. And yeah, I believe I have think I have an infinite loop here. Let's see if I can reload this real quick and get it done before. All right, I did something in there that scared everything up. So we will do this. We will do this. We will do this. And almost there. Almost there. And in theory, save this, run it, and let's see. I'll pick a reddish. All right, now let's pick a bluish. And it's nice. I mean, it's kind of hidden behind the UI, but it's definitely updating live. And just because I'm an English major, I'll put a period in there just to make it legit. So it reloaded. Let's just be really short. Showed up right, and there we go. Closest to red. Let's pick a yellow. I actually don't know what it's going to say for yellow. All right. Yeah, but you see, it's really kind of close there. That distance on blue is surprising. That's interesting. Anyway, hopefully this was kind of fun. And you can see it's not a lot of code. One of the biggest differences between this and the non-Alpine version, obviously, is that I'm going to have a lot of code that's working with the DOM that I don't need in the Alpine version because Alpine's doing that for me. So I like to think of Alpine as like a superpowered jQuery or a modern jQuery. And so I really appreciate that, and it works really well, I think. Anyway, let me know, what do you think about this? I didn't make too many mistakes, and I'm right at 20 minutes, so it's not too terribly long. But again, let me know what you think, and enjoy.